Hello and welcome to a response/reaction video to the CNBC video, How to Set Up Your Annual Budget, which was released just today. For the 2% of you who know me, a very special welcome back, and to the 98% who aren't, I'm Raymond, a software engineer on the path to financial independence and retiring early through the power of saving and investing. If that's something that interests you, feel free to hit that subscribe button and follow me on this journey. This really helps out the channel, so thank you so much in advance. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. And the video starts off with a pretty grim statistic.
40% of Americans today said they don't set financial resolutions for the new year, while 68% said they have no written financial plan at any point in the year.
Now, to those of us who have been in personal finance for a while, this is not necessarily a statistic that we are not unfamiliar with. The average American doesn't necessarily think for too long or across a long enough time frame with their finances, on average at least. Of course, if you're watching either the CNBC video or my video, you're more than likely already interested somewhat in making sure that your finances are in order. So after that disappointing statistic, the video jumps into the first step in order to set up your budget, I suppose, and that is to take a look at your finances from the perspective of your net income rather than your gross income.
Knowing your income is extremely important because you know exactly how much you have to deploy.
Really, we're working off of our take-home pay. And so that's the money that you see that hits your bank account every month.
So your pay after federal taxes, Social Security, employee benefits like your healthcare plan, things like that. And we also will kind of go back and capture things like if you're putting money in your 401k or other retirement plan, we will kind of add that back in.
In this case, I wholeheartedly agree with taking a look at those finances from the perspective of your net income rather than your gross income. Although I don't necessarily agree too much with also counting in your 401k and HSA. In the context of figuring out how much you're saving, definitely include your 401k and your HSA contributions. After you figure out how much you actually earn after taxes, after your contributions, after whatever else your company or the government takes away from your paycheck, the video jumps to the next step and talks about updating and figuring out how much you actually spend in a month.
It's not the most fun activity, but I like going through my credit card statement or my checking account statements with a fine-tooth comb to see, okay, exactly how much I spent on healthcare, for example. Here's how much I spent on clothing or how much I spent on food. It can be really eye-opening to see exactly where that money is going. You may find that you're spending less in some areas and maybe more than you expected in others.
The video makes a pretty good point to track your expenses regularly. I think that a lot of us, including myself, when we started off, we didn't really think about our transactions too much. We didn't really think too much about spending money. And of course, although we can always generally remember what we spent today, I have trouble tracking how much I spend on a weekly basis off the top of my head, much less a month. Putting everything in one place definitely helps out, and that's why I personally opt with my budgeting spreadsheet. There are automated solutions out there as well. I won't go into any of them in depth in this particular video, but there are applications that sync with either your bank or your credit card companies, and they'll pull the transactions from whatever cards or your bank accounts, and they'll put it all in one neat place, maybe even categorize them by the type of transaction they think they are, and they'll let you know how much you spend in any given month. It's a pretty convenient solution for those of us who don't really like adding numbers into a spreadsheet. And I think the clarity by which you can take a look at how much you spend in a month is well worth the small amount of money that you might be paying for some of these services. So after figuring out how much you actually spend in a month and how much you actually earn in a month, the video jumps on to its third point, which is to figure out the financial goals that you're interested in and actually plan them out and work on them.
Experts say that the easiest way to achieve these goals is to pay yourself first.
You create savings like a bill, right? You don't wait and pay your mortgage at the end of the month and say, oh, whatever I have left over, I'll use to pay my mortgage, right? It doesn't really work that way. Before you do anything that causes you to spend that discretionary income, put some money aside and pay yourself first.
I like the idea of pay yourself first, and it's a concept that I've heard before, but I especially like the idea of the 401k and the HSA. And the reason being, they automatically take from your paycheck without you even having to really do anything besides your initial setup when you join your company. I think this is a really great option for those of us starting out, because it's not something that necessarily takes a ton of willpower to do. Once you're used to the habit of saving within your 401k and HSA, I think that it makes it a lot easier to think about the context of how much can I save additionally after I spend on what I need and after I spend on what I want every single month. How can I translate that into financial independence, right? Or how can I just translate that to reaching my financial goals? And that's where something like investing in a regular taxable brokerage account comes in, or maybe even setting up an individual retirement account, traditional or Roth.
So the budget parameter that I like is the 50-30-20 budget. So 50% of your take-home pay should go to your needs, 30% should go to your wants. So wants is eating out, wants is getting your hair done, wants is makeup, wants is clothing, and then 20% should go to saving for your financial future.
One thing that I am curious about in this point is how my own budget fares with the 50-30-20 rule. So let's take a look. If we're taking a look at my needs, I think that's probably where a bulk of at least the money that I see goes towards. Rent is definitely the highest, the most expensive thing that I have, including the renter's insurance and utilities and all that sort of thing. And of course, there's also transit and groceries, which are things that I can't necessarily function without either. All that totals to a little over $2,100, doing the mental math, probably closer to $2,200. There's also things like my student loans and hospital bills that I can't really get away from either. I think if we tack them onto the list, I probably spend about between $2,500 to $2,800 a month on things that I actually need. In terms of things that I want, I think the biggest categories are my splurge funds, as well as eating out, and some other things that I don't necessarily spend on right away, but definitely things that I intend to spend money on, like travel, as well as my credit cards. So I think adding those up, we probably get to around 500 or 600, maybe closer to 700, 800 a month, which I think is still a pretty low amount. I don't have a clothing budget, as they talk about in the video. Most of my clothes right here come from courtesy of the company that I work for. While it may not be necessarily the most stylish, it gets the job done and I don't need to pay for any additional clothing. If you're counting my 401k and my HSA and everything else, I do save quite a bit. I'll go ahead and put the percentages up here, and if you're interested in a deeper dive into each of those categories within my budget, I'll have a video of my January budget that I'll link either on the top left or top right. I'm not sure which one YouTube does. But according to CNBC, that's really the only 3 steps that you need to set up a budget, and I think that it's a pretty solid video, and I think that it's a great introductory video for those of us who have New Year's resolutions or New Year's goals to improve our financial situation. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you took something out of it. If you did, please leave a like and a comment. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoy this type of stuff. In any case, I'll see you in the next video.